Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. So today, I'm joined with David Kahit. I might have said your name right, but he also goes by the Cove Podcast Network. And if you find him on YouTube or Instagram, he posts very informative clips on the political dimension. This is a dimension that I don't look into that much, but when I'm looking on social media, he gives me a nice update on things that are going on. And honestly, I think he does an amazing job at it. And I really wanted to pick his brain, and I'm really glad he came on. So thanks for coming on, David.
Hey, Harley, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I appreciate those kind words, and I definitely try to update as many people as I can into the political world, and I crossed paths with you randomly, just saw you on the feed and really liked what you were saying, and I think politics and kind of what you're saying kind of go hand in hand sometimes, so I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to today's episode.
Heck yeah, man. So I first wanted to ask, what got you interested in the political dimension, and what got you interested in politics in general?
It's funny you asked me that because I wasn't a political guy at all. I mean, my first semester in college, I didn't even know what was Republican and Democrat, and I was taking like the poli-science intro class, even though I was not a political science major at all. And I just never was really into politics whatsoever until 2016. And then I saw like this guy that I knew, Trump, obviously come down the escalator. And I just started to watch a little bit of Fox News, kind of Twitter was blowing up at that time. So I would see different funny clips from, more politically driven clips. But still wasn't political at all. I mean, I had a business that really didn't allow me to get into politics whatsoever. So kind of laid low of politics for a while until about 2020 when right after the 2020 presidential election. After that happened, I was just sitting at home for about 8-9 months already because of COVID, and I just got really into it. Just found myself just deep into politics all the time, whether it's looking at polls, whether it's looking at constant news and whatnot, and decided, hey, let me go back to school while everything is still online, take advantage of online classes, and decided to switch. Literally, I was just looking at my degree, and I was like, I don't want to do another math class, because for my business management class, I had to do one more math class. So I was like, hey, let me just try political science. It's a lot of writing. I'm into politics, and that was literally 2021. Took 2 years to get my political science degree with a little pre-law kind of like, I guess, undergrad thing going on. And that was about 6 months ago. And so now I just dived into politics because of what happened in 2020, and then just stayed into politics because that's my profession now, I would say. It's just being inside the political world.
Sure. Yeah, I'm curious. I want to pick your brain on something interesting, because I see that, well, I feel like there's some people who are really interested in politics and other people who aren't. And I'm trying to figure out why that might be. Is that maybe because, well, I think I have a theory, and I want to just pick your brain on this theory. So there's a personality trait called agreeableness. I actually am kind of high in agreeableness, where I actually I don't mind conflict, but I'll honestly keep things light. I won't necessarily critique someone's ideas that hard. I'm kind of more, accepting / understanding, open-minded, etc. Whereas I'm just going to use my roommate, Nate, who you know as well. He's more interested in politics, and he's much more disagreeable. He's willing to have that kind of debate. And I was just curious, like, do you think you're a person who enjoys debating, or less so? And do you think that impacts the way in which you view politics as a whole?
That's a great question. And first of all, about this trait about agreeable, actually in school, we would read a lot of studies. And that's one thing I did enjoy about school, is that there are a lot of classes that push things on you, but then there's a lot that just make you read a bunch of studies. Excuse me. And one of the studies was about agreeable and this personality trait, that it tends to be more with people that are politically driven. But the interesting thing about that switched around the 80s or 90s. Most of the political scene before that was made out of people like you, who aren't that interested or driven by politics, right? You didn't see too much. You saw the activism through all the different movements, the feminist movement, and before that, the civil rights movement, but you didn't see that many people care about politics like they do right now. And that's because politics wasn't as polarized as it is today. So people who aren't, people who are agreeable to personalities, they found themselves in the political world because of this, because much of politics at the time was not polarized at all. It wasn't, partisan politics or any of this stuff. You didn't really have the partisan media effects that we have today. So I think I'd like to debate, but I'll be honest with you, I really like to poke holes. So even if you, let's say, I fully agree with you on everything, I'll challenge you on all these positions, because even if I sit here and agree with you on everything, I mean, that's cool and all, but if I challenge you on your position, even if I agree with you, then I'll probably get, maybe some other people to agree with us on this topic, because you're convincing people that may not agree with you. So I think that, I'm not an agreeable person, but I'm not a disagreeable person either. I'll put myself smack down in the middle, where sometimes I get overran by people because it's just better to smile and just agree with them. But I definitely like to challenge thoughts. And mainly if I disagree with you on some policy related things, then I just like to talk about policy. So if we disagree about policy, I love that so much. I don't find anything better than disagreeing about policy and having rational, civil argument around it. So it's a great question right there. I never really thought about it.
Yeah, that was a great answer. Like, I feel like, we live in an interesting culture where if someone disagrees with you, they're now an evil person, they're a bad person, or they're a person that you shouldn't talk with. And I'm just kind of like, if you think about like politics from way back in the day, or even like, ancient Rome, or it's like people would sit down around a table, philosophize, discuss, try to get closer to the truth, poke holes in their own arguments, devil's advocate, back and forth. And it's like this ongoing process of attempting to figure out what's true, what's better. And I feel like, in today's world, we have these sound bites, and you now can see a 2-second clip of someone and be like, oh, they're bad. Or it's interesting because
it's very unfortunate, I'd say.
It is unfortunate because, like, when's the last time some of these people that have a ton of debates on Twitter have ever sat down in a room or on a podcast to discuss, okay, where specifically do we disagree? Where do we agree, first of all? Because it's probably 85% of the things we agree on. But, like, these discussions of nuance and depth are not really had very much. And I guess that's kind of why I see podcasts as a beautiful path out of that. But I'm not sure what you think. It is.
Oh, 100%. Because, I mean, when you were talking about this just a second ago, the concept of disagreeing on things, I mean, essentially that's what Congress was built on, or parliament systems. These are being able to disagree in a chamber where you're representing people who put you in that place for you to voice this opinion. That's democracy. I mean, we've built literally all of our systems on it, on Congress, Parliament. They're all built on the system of disagreeing and being able to go afterwards and grab a beer at your local bar afterwards. I mean, you look at our founding fathers. That's what they did. They would sit there and try and write the Constitution. They would have delegates from different states. They would disagree on it. What would they do afterwards? They'll go to the pub and talk about it even some more, or be friends about it. I mean, we're in a totally different time now. I forgot. I'm so sorry. Oh, the podcast. Yeah. And I see podcasts nowadays as Congress. It's a place where I can have a conversation with a person. We could disagree on things. We could agree on things, but we can have this rational discourse, which is so important for democracy, or for a republic, for anything that we care about. Having the ability to have free speech, whether we disagree with each other or not, me being able to voice my opinion and not being worried that I'll be labeled something because of it, is just so important. And I see it all the time through podcasts now. I mean, you can't do it on the legacy medias anymore, so you have to do it somewhere. So that's another great question.
Hey, thanks, man. Yeah, it is disappointing because I've had a lot of conversations either with Nate or people that I went to school with, and it's crazy. Like, I always find this kind of funny because, we both put our content out on the internet, and then we get you probably get a lot more negative comments than me. But either way, we both get some negative comments. And it's so funny because it's like if we were in the same room and I would have just said what I just said, their reaction wouldn't have been as vitriolic, hateful, angry, etc. And like they probably would have. I just feel like this mode in which people are engaging in politics allows for this, I guess, non-nuanced, just cutthroat approach to, oh, he disagrees, he's stupid. And it's just like, it's very unfortunate, but I guess
It's much easier to just, call somebody something, through the internet because you're on Twitter and you can just see something and say, oh, he's a dumb, lib or something like that, than to say, hey, I disagree with him because of this. Because that takes you actually to the rational level of things, which majority of people either avoid or unfortunately just aren't there, right? Because like you're saying, they see these topics, they see the clickbaits for them, and that's all they say. They just sometimes, like we were talking about the comments, sometimes I just read these comments and to me they're funny because I'm like, I just read that on CNN. It's like a CNN headline, but in my comments. So it's it's really funny, and it's funny, but it's very unfortunate, like we were saying. So
yeah, like I'm just trying to, I don't know, I'm trying to like think. Do you think, I guess as a question, like, do you have optimism for the way that the parties are going? Like, it seems like right now it's you have a few paths you can go. You can go the mainstream media path, or you can go the independent media path, and within those paths you have right, left, center. It's interesting because like I guess this is finally the question I'm getting to, because I feel like, are you Republican or are you Democrat? And this is when I get that question, I give this answer, and maybe it's a bad answer, and I'm curious your opinion on it because, yeah, I just want to see. I say, my name is Harley, and I'm an individual who's trying to learn about all kinds of different topics, and each topic is complex and different, and I'm just trying to figure it out. I lean more, conservative in regards to I grew up with a religious Christian family, and I also lean a little bit more libertarian because I run a business and I don't like when the government gets involved, but I notice that there's complexities within everything. Or, that's kind of my answer. I don't like saying I'm Republican because then all of a sudden I'm now in a box, and then Harley is now this guy. And I'm like, I'm not that guy. I'm this guy. So I don't know what you think of that.
Yeah, it's unfortunately that is the outcome of a two-party system that we have in the United States, and it's pretty unique to the United States because if you look at different, I can't say it's always switching between republics and democracies. You look at Western democracies; most of them, the ones in Europe that we'll see, are composed of parliaments. Parliaments you cannot sustain with a two-party system because for you to build coalition and for you to have the majority, you do need to go and make, friends with perhaps the people that are more center, or, you got to build coalitions, for example. So it's that outcome of a two-party system that we have here in the United States. I can't remember the last time that there was like a actual like meaningful third-party candidate that actually would represent something and actually would carve out a solid, position and everything like that. So my thing is that if you get asked, are you a Republican or Democrat, I like to break it down because, like you're saying, everything is much more complex, and every single controversial topic that anybody will always debate about, or at least right now that we have, is a multifaceted problem. If somebody's going to tell you yes or no, black and white answer, it's never going to be like that. There's pros and cons on both sides of things. You can list them from abortions to immigration to everything. Every single topic has its pros and cons. So unfortunately, if you're just saying I'm Republican, then all of a sudden people are starting to say, well, you agree with this, and this. And I like to say, well, hold up, listen, I'm not voting for the Democrats because until the Democrats start to provide any sort of policy that I actually like when it comes down to the economy or it comes down to immigration, I'm not voting for them. It doesn't make sense. Do I agree with every single thing that the Republicans say? Absolutely not. Do I agree with everything that, let's say, Trump says, that I voted for twice and absolutely loved and still do love? No. I will criticize Trump with no problem. And the reason why is because I can't confine myself to one single, person or party, because that kind of makes you a cult, essentially, right? If you're going to defend values that are not aligning with yourself just because of a representation to a party or an individual, I'm sorry. You can criticize this individual and still like them and vote for them, but that's what I like to separate myself from. So I look at every issue for what it is. Some issues I agree with, quote unquote, Democrats on. Some majority of issues I agree with Republicans on, but I can criticize Republicans for a lot of things that they're doing, and I see that there's a fraction within all the parties. There's the far right, just like there's the far left. There's people that are in the center that lean a little bit more towards the left versus leaning a little bit more towards the right. I talked about this the other day, actually, like liberal conservatism, right? You don't hear that word too often because so many people think that the opposite of conservatism is liberalism. It's not, it's progressiveness, right? You wouldn't have political terms that combine the two together if they actually were different from each other. And what that means is that you're maybe more socially liberal in terms of like, I could care less if people want to be gay or lesbian. Don't shove it down my throat. Don't shove it down kids' throats. Don't educate people on that, right? So you'd say that, okay, the first part, that kind of sounds more Democrat. But the second things that he just said are more Republican. But if you switch the words around and you were actually saying, okay, what he first said is a little bit more of, I guess, liberal, which doesn't associate with either parties, more Democrats or Republicans. They're both essentially liberals. Just depends how liberal they are. But the second part obviously comes down with more policy intent. Don't shove it down my throat. Don't put it into kids' throats, right? That is something that the Republicans get behind. So there's that. And when it comes down to, fiscal stuff, what is it called? Fiscal economy. I can't remember the word. I'm fiscally conservative, basically. I like low taxes. I don't like too many regulations. I don't like big government, right? So you hear all these things and you say, okay, he's Republican. But then I go back and say, hey, I'm for legalizing marijuana. So it's like, how can you group this into I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat? You can't. So I know that was kind of long, but it kind of goes back to my crisis of words. It's people are just using different words because they're used to it. Kind of goes back to the clickbait thing. They don't really know what these words mean, and then definitions get eroded like that. So
yeah, that was really well put. That's the kind of answer I'd like to see, because, in my opinion, I feel like I'm just thinking of, even, far-right people on Facebook who, sharing these just memes and just, that's just no open-mindedness whatsoever to think, I could be wrong. The other side might have some points. Or, the people on the far left who are like, oh, these people are absolute racists and Nazis. And it's just like, that is not a way to have a discussion. And one of the favorite quotes that I got going down the Peterson rabbit hole was from this Alexander Solzhenitsyn, which is kind of like, the line between good and evil runs down the heart of every person. Be slow to judge someone else and say that they're evil. Be quick to look towards the evil in your own heart and look towards the places where you could be wrong. And that's kind of one thing I really, really just respect about people who are willing to dive into the nuances and willing to say, I'm not totally certain on the issue. I've done some research. I lean more this way because of the research I've done. But if you were to convince me otherwise, I may be able to be convinced. Or, that kind of way of explaining. But we just don't live in a culture where typing that out on Twitter would have taken 20 minutes. So it's not efficient necessarily. What's efficient is I hate blank, or a few sentence little phrase. And you're right, we're in kind of a crisis of words where he used this word, he's now a this person, or he's this, now he can be characterized by this one word. And it's just, I don't know, I have a theory of I wonder if the IQ of people is decreasing because they aren't having to read through the complex legal policies and tax documents that were being written up, they are reading the headline and the few second soundbite, and I'm like, we're not being intellectually stimulated when engaging in this political dimension at the moment. But I don't know if you know where I'm going. Yeah.
Absolutely. And just to kind of like build on that, I see it, again, a course I took was media and politics in college. And I'm so thankful for it because I've learned about media partisan effects of it. And that's what happens with, when we have partisan media, with the effect on society is doing exactly that, where you get driven from one side to the other, and next thing you know, the society is so polarized over what? over really what? Over things that majority of us agree on. So I just kind of want to evolve on that a little.
Yeah, man. And I also think, I don't know if you've ever seen The Social Dilemma.
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah.
You need to revisit that. You just reminded me of that. I saw that about 3-4 years ago now.
Same, man. I need to too, because it kind of reminds me of like, all right, I'm going to take a look at my truth-wielding machine, which is my rectangle, pulling it out. Ooh, this person I follow says this. Oh, this person I follow also says this. It agrees. Yep. Confirm. My box of truth is telling me that, yes, I am right. But it's like we're not exposing ourselves, or the algorithm is giving us information that it knows that we'll agree with, and it's making us, it's closing in our view of the world. It's like, oh, I have the exact answers because I know all the answers. I agree with, or like, I have the truth. This person's video came in my mind, and now that's truth for me. And it's just like, if you looked at the feeds of a Republican or a Democrat, generally, they're going to have completely different feeds. So like, the one person might say, well, you should take a look at my article. Well, and the other person's like, well, I don't really read articles off of that blank. And then it's kind of like, well, now we have groups of people that are just unwilling to ever listen to each other fully. It's crazy to me.
It's wild, and it gets even crazier than that when you're having a conversation with somebody that says he's citing a source, CNN, let's say, for example, or it doesn't have to be so partisan, right? NPR, for example, and they're saying this happened all the time during COVID. They would say something, and they would say, hey, did you know that this is going on with the masks now, right? And then you'd say, no, it's not. I just read this morning that it's not true. And then they say, well, no, it's not. I literally just read it last night on NPR. Then said, what ends up happening is that everybody's so quick to trying to get this information out. Nothing gets really fact checked. Things just get out there because they can always correct it afterwards, because all these partisan medias care about is just trying to get those clickbaits out there or try to get those headlines out there as soon as they can. And that ends up with things like me telling my friend, no, it's not. This morning I read the article that said that whatever you read last night is not true. And then they're like, what? That can't be it. And then you end up in this weird situation where they're like, I just read this article on NPR, let's say, right? And they're like saying, what are you talking about? And you're like, this morning I actually read an article that said that what you read on NPR is not true. So it's the craziest situation, and it happens all the time. And it's just the environment that we're in, unfortunately, and the social chambers that people lock themselves in doesn't make it better, because you got people, 7 years later, who still think that, Trump is a Russian agent that colluded with Russia to steal the 2016 election from Hillary Clinton. I mean, things that are just laughable and have been already verified and have been proven to be false. Because you're locked up in your social chamber and perhaps you're just listening to one certain source of news, you're going to live in a different reality where, 80% of us are living in the real reality.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Like, I also think, you said something also that was like, most of us agree. It seems like there's like a few issues that like are kind of hot issues, but like when you think about the grand scheme of things, it's like we all mostly agree that we want as many people as possible to thrive financially. We want as many people as possible to have the freedom to pursue the jobs they want to pursue. Or it's like there's like a huge number of things that pretty much most people agree on, and then it's just these hot button issues, if that's what it's called, where like that is now the make or break tilt. Whereas I feel like people need to realize that the person that I'm arguing with probably agrees with me on more issues than I'd even realize. And I guess that's kind of the power of a strong man argument instead of a straw man.
I like that.
Like
That's
Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
you're absolutely right. I mean, Republicans and Democrats, if you look at the polling and you look at the data, and you just look at, people that are actually willing to have a rational conversation, they tend to agree on a lot more than, the media may make it seem like, or, social media may make it seem like. I mean, you think we really are polarized, and I noted that myself, that we become much more polarized, but we're not as polarized as you actually think. I mean, Republicans and Democrats do tend to agree on a lot of policy, not rhetoric, just policy. When it actually comes, you ask the question and say, as an American voter, do you agree if the legislation passed this? And you end up finding like 2/3 of Democrats agree with 98% of Republicans on LGBTQ issues, right? When it comes down to kids. You find things that when it comes to abortion, 86% of Americans agree that abortion should be accessible in the first trimester, but that rate drops to it's crazy how much it drops. I believe it drops to the 20s for second trimester, and it's non-existent. It's like 3 or 4%, maybe 8% most when it comes to the third trimester. But abortion, everybody thinks is such a controversial topic. It's a really non-majority of us agree that it's, that first trimester is something that's where it should be at, right? And then you can get into like the conversation of it already of where that point should be. But to get to there, you first have to get people to realize that we're not that polarized on these topics. So there's not much that Democrats and Republicans really disagree on when it actually comes to the policy of it. When they go out in front of the camera, they have to appeal, which I don't see it as much with Republicans, and maybe that's a little bias of me, but Democrats are the ones that are being hijacked by this, far left side of their party. So that's why you see a lot of Democrats unnoticeable now who, 2 years ago would have stood up for women's rights, but now will tell you that a biological male should be competing in women's sports. So it's ridiculous.
Bro. Yeah. I really like the way you phrased it. It's like all those issues, they're complicated. And once you actually look into the numbers, and it's like, yeah, we really agree. And like, I really think, imagine this was like 1923, 100 years ago, and like all these arguments that are being had, we would have no idea about. We would maybe get the newspaper every few days and kind of read the little stories and then be like, move on with our day. And like, sure, some people might disagree, but it's like we wouldn't have the constant influx of, oh my word, did you hear how crazy that side is over there? Or it's just, just doesn't exist. And I'm like, what is this doing to us as a human race, where we're able to constantly view how stupid the left is, how horrible the right is every day, every second. And whereas before that was never possible. Like all these gender things, no one would ever know about really, or it wouldn't have the traction to really go very far. Or, I don't know. I'm just trying to think like,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
No. You're 100% right. I mean, if you look at it, just not even 100 years ago, 10 years ago, if you told me when I was in high school, I was a junior in high school at the time, that we would be talking about this stuff, asking ourselves what is women, and that would be like that's what is being discussed in political discourse. I would say you're crazy. If you told me, bet $1 million because that's what's gonna happen, or bet $2 and you'll make $1 million because you'll because that's what'll be happening, I wouldn't even try to lose my $2 at the time. I mean, it just doesn't make sense, just at all. I can't imagine it.
Yeah, man, I agree. I'll get into that issue in a minute. I kind of wanna ask your advice, or just, well, first this question. how do you think looking at this daily news cycle and engaging in politics has impacted your mental health? Do you feel like it's been a net good or a net bad? Like, do you feel like the lessons you've learned have been worth the disagreements? Or I'm just asking for myself, because I sometimes debate. I'm like, should I go and look into the newest things or not? And I typically just lean to not, maybe just out of interest, but I'm just curious your opinion. Do you feel like, how is it impacting your brain, mental health, etc.? And B, do you recommend people do what you do, which is dive into these issues and learn about them regularly? I'm just curious.
Those are those are fantastic questions. I believe that it's definitely had an impact on on my mental health and everything, and sometimes I've gone down the rabbit hole, if you would say so, and not like in a conspiracy way, but just too far deep into politics, and too much of everything is not good. You got to create balance for yourself, balance of lifestyle, everything. So sitting on the news 24 hours a day, terrible idea. Even 12 hours a day, terrible idea. 2 hours a day, too much. Enjoy your favorite podcast. Let the news come to you. I may not be the first person to see something, and perhaps my quote-unquote podcast requires me to be the first one to come out with the news or to compete for it, but let it come to you. Let the news come to you. If you're going to be constantly watching Fox News, CNN, even you're watching all day long podcasts, it's going to take a toll on your mental health. Folks are watching, for example, that really care about the Ukraine war, 24/7 indulging themselves in the Ukraine war. I'm talking specifically about my dad. The first few months, that's pretty much all he did, right, is watch a lot of podcasts that are coming out of there. And then he popped out of it, and he was like, well, that was too much, right? And that was me in 2020. I was like too much into all the different things, right? So it's important to not get into there, because it does take a toll on your mental health. But if you find that good balance, then I think that it actually grows you. I think it helps develop my brain, honestly, challenging my brain to beliefs or traditions that I have always enjoyed or thought were real, to challenge them and sharpen them. I think that just makes my brain develop. I think it would develop anybody's brain if things are constantly challenged or you learn new things.
For sure.
I really love reading a new article. Like anytime I find a new a new study that connects the different issues in politics, and people don't get into the study, so they get kind of left on top of the iceberg and go back to the clickbaits or the headlines and everything like that. So. And then for the second question, it was, what was the second question?
It's like advice, I guess, to people. Yeah, I guess you kind of answered it almost. It was kind of like advice to people who may not be interested. Some of the tokens I took from that was like, dive into the studies, not the headlines. Have balance. Maybe look at things that truly interest you. Don't just keep looking and looking. If it comes to you, then engage, or that kind of advice. But I guess yeah.
I was going to say, and find things you like, because one quick thing that could answer both those questions. I can't watch a full hour-long podcast about politics. Maybe 10, 15 minutes is enough for me. What I can watch an hour long of is like a Steven Crowder, for example. It's a political show, but it's with so much humor and so many jokes in there. I can watch that for an hour. So that's what I've learned. Is I found the balance between politics, humor, entertainment, where I'm enjoying what I'm getting in, and that's my advice for everybody else is like do dive into like all these different things, but don't go to Fox News, let's say, and I'm not hating on Fox News. I watch Fox News myself. Don't go to things that you won't like just to force yourself to try and like politics. Find something that you love, combine it together with politics. It's all over the place now.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a great question. It made me think a
Thanks,
lot, actually.
Heck yeah, bro. Heck yeah.
Yeah, I was like, well, hey, what advice could I give?
Yeah.
'Cause I've definitely gone down that hole myself, where it's like, I'm like sick of politics. I don't want to do anything with politics, and I understand it's because I found myself indulged in politics all the time.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's a great point. Like, even just stepping outside and just being like, none of this matters at the moment. I'm living my life for a moment. That's something that
Your president doesn't matter. It has no influence on you whatsoever. I mean, it does, obviously, but who's in the White House right this second? It's not going to, shouldn't block you from going outside and meeting a girl or, going out and enjoying different things, right? So don't let that, darken your life or impact your mental health to that point.
For sure, man. And I guess a question, an optimistic or pessimistic kind of like response I'm looking for. I'm not sure. I can't decide if I'm optimistic or pessimistic, I guess. Do you think that the honest dialogue between the right and the left can be repaired? Do you think there's a possibility in which we can maybe get to the place where people aren't as polarized, they're able to meet in the middle, have these discussions? And do you think, how do you think that would be repaired? Or do you think it's non-repairable?
I think we're in an interesting time where a lot of it depends on what's going to happen right now, and I would say in the next few years, because you have partisan media phasing out. A lot of people don't go to media, like the partisan media, the legacy media, anymore to get their news source. They go to independent news sources, right? And majority of those independent news sources nowadays are podcasts. Podcasts aren't doing, too good for partisan media, trying to replace partisan media, because what they're doing is just driving people towards their narrative as well, right? For example, not too many podcasts are too open-minded. They understand that they have an audience and that they need to tailor that message to their audience, right? They can't push too much from that audience to try and gain the folks that are in the middle, because then they're at risk of losing the folks that they've already, built the audience towards. So it's really going to come down to, are people going to put aside tailoring the message to a certain audience and trying to bring the political discourse back to America, the civil, rational discourse, what we used to be able to do, just go out on the stage, have a Democrat and a Republican, or they may not even be Democrats and Republicans. They just oppose each other on everything, on every single policy, on every single social and political issue, but are able to have a rational, civil argument on the stage. I think if we can get back to that, because that used to be an American standard, then I think that I do have hope. Basically, that's my thing, is that I do have hope. I think that I always blame it on the overly progressive reformers here, who are just so blinded by all the injustices that they think are there, that they're actually destroying America. They're pulling everything towards their side so much that they are the ones who are destroying free speech or the ability to disagree with each other. And these folks are actually very, very small, like a small fraction of the entire political spectrum, or just the entire American population, I would say. These folks are going to die off, not literally, but politically. And I think that's when political conversation in terms of rational and civil discourse is going to come back to America. So I'm pretty optimistic, and I just can't see this surviving long. It always comes in phases, and it ends up either in a Marxist revolution or ends up Marxist fading away. So we're in a crossroads, essentially. It's like a fork. Anything can happen from here.
Yeah, man. I lean optimistic most of the time anyways, just because it helps my mental health of everything is going to be okay. If I get too worried about the future or about the state of the world, I now cannot be as good of a version of a partner to my girlfriend, or a brother to my brother, or a friend to my friend if I'm all just worked up. I just try my best to kind of take it in and then just breathe and be like, it's going to be probably okay. But
yeah, it's definitely not good to just have a negative outlook into the future. And that's the thing with politics, is that a lot of it is negative. So if you can find a way to make it positive, which really nobody wants to get into nasty disagreements, but if you can have a rational civil disagreement, you can enjoy politics, disagree, and still go and have a healthy mindset and not be impacted by anything negative, because nothing negative comes out of you disagreeing with an individual. There's really nothing bad about disagreeing. It actually is really, really good to disagree, because then we can poke each other's holes and figure out, hey, this is bad, we have both bad things on our sides, we both have good things on our sides, let's combine them together. And that's how America used to come together, disagree, and create the best policy ever.
Yeah.
So I'm really optimistic. I really think that we can get back to there. I mean, you got to hit rock bottom before you bounce back up.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah, and I see the amount of people that are following you. I really think you could be one of the leaders of something like this that starts that dialogue and that conversation. Because I think you're really nuanced and really well articulated in this dimension. You kind of remind me of like the up-and-coming Matt Walsh, Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro. You remind me of someone. Of course, you're a unique individual with your own views, which is so beautiful. But I just see this occurring. Like, I'm gonna know this David. Everyone's gonna know him, and I'm gonna know him.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, those are really kind words, and I'll be honest. That's what I am trying to do. I don't want to position myself as subjective or position myself as, I want people to wonder, is he a Democrat? Is he a Republican? Is he a libertarian? What is he? What is David? Is he a Trump supporter? Is he a DeSantis supporter? I don't want anybody to be just, this is what David. And I think the more of us, like you were saying, the better it'll be for us, because, people can get trapped in their favorite podcaster that is driving them away from the center or driving them from being rational, open-minded to discourse. So I just want to promote objectivity over subjectivity, even if it means being critical or criticizing things that you've always valued or things that you love and enjoy. I think that is the best for America, for society, humanity, and I think that is where my optimism comes from, is hoping there's more folks like us who are willing to challenge either sides to bring us together. So,
yeah, that's great. This might be an interesting question as well. Have there been any topics in recent years or recently that you've changed your mind on? Like something where you were saying, you had a belief and you're like, but then you heard enough challenges and holes and you're like, I guess I do need to switch my thought. Have you had any of those kind of I need to switch my view moments?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, for example, my most recent one is obviously on the Ukraine war, and that is really, really, really unpopular with I want to say I do polls nonstop about that just to see, what's going on with the public opinion of my audience.
Like on your Instagram?
On my Instagram, yeah. And just seeing what if it's shifting or anything like that. Because here's my thing, is that when the invasion first happened, I was like, wow, NATO provoked this. I don't understand. Like if America had, weapons or nukes sitting in Mexico aimed at them, they would do the same exact thing. It's like I had all these different types of ideas of why it's justifiable for what Russia was doing. But the more I learned about the situation, the more I learned about historical context, which historical context is so important. And I listened to a variety of different types of perspectives, and then I would go back and verify them, right? I don't just listen to them, but then I would go and do my own independent research. I would talk to various people about it, and I wouldn't say I was wrong on my position, and I have no problem saying that, and saying that I evolved on my position as well. And I believe that, for example, funding Ukraine and making sure that they're able to kick Russia's absolute ass, sorry for that, is my foreign policy. That is something that I believe in. And that is so unpopular with Republicans. It is unpopular with not even just one fraction of the Republicans. It's, like 80, 70, 60% of them are, don't really agree with this position. So I evolved on it. It took me, like I said, going to different things, especially learning historical context, and then just taking all the propaganda out. Both sides have their propaganda to convince people to support their side. Take all that out, learn the historical context, learn about facts that are actually facts that are 100% verifiable, and that changed my opinion. Funny, if you don't mind me saying, another funny story is that in college, I was always challenged on my ideas, and I didn't mind that at all. Professors would constantly challenge my ideas, and I was willing to let them challenge them and to convince me and hoping that they would change my mind. I'm not hoping, but letting them, and they wouldn't do it because everything would come back to subjectivity. Everything would come back to a single example. So there's my difference. I 100% will evolve on my position if you will show me facts that I can go and verify, and you show me different perspectives, and you show me historical context. I have no problem evolving on a position. But yeah, so that's kind of that's my latest one, at least.
Man, that's awesome, man. Props, because some people just aren't willing to be, well, they aren't willing to put in that work of like research, dive into the nuances, and that's why I respect that a lot, and that's why I follow you too, because I know that you're just very smart, and you, like, your commentary isn't just, I don't know, it doesn't feel as if, it doesn't feel headline-ish, if you know what I mean. It feels like, yeah, so that's awesome.
I mean, I'm controversial in my like quick opening or whatnot, but it's mostly just to get people's attention.
For sure.
Just so I can, it's almost like a headline, just so you could get into the article or the clip, right?
Exactly.
So you could learn a little bit more about it, right? I mean, I always get hit on my systemic racism stuff, and my institutionalized racism posts, right? And it's like, if you disagree, I mean, you can disagree, but the facts are facts. So it's really nothing you can do to change my mind unless you present to me various different facts that are somehow going to compel a different story.
For sure. Yeah, but you still have that door open. Like, come and bring me facts. Not, I'm closed off completely. Yeah, exactly.
Disprove me. I want to, and that's what I look for. That's why I say, people, please come debate me. I open up the comments for rational discourse. I get heated in them. You know, I'm a normal human being, so sometimes I become a jerk and say stupid things, right? But most of the time, it's like open discourse. Please come convince me otherwise of my opinion.
Yeah, it's really great. I also kind of wanted to talk, you know, we've talked about What is a Woman on your podcast before, and I thought it was a great documentary, and I kind of want to talk specifically about how it was aired on Twitter, and Elon Musk, at first, Twitter seemed to try to block it, but then he kind of pushed it farther out and retweeted it and said everyone should take a look at this. And I have great respect for Musk just for his ability to, well, not censor anyone. That's one thing that I really dislike in this current culture, which is like, oh, you shouldn't listen to this person. Oh, this person is not allowed to speak. This person is putting out ideas that are harmful ideas. And then I'm kind of like, harmful ideas. Have you ever read 1984 where you're not allowed to think certain things or say certain things because they're harmful? I'm just like, people really gotta look into why allowing people to say ideas, even if they're bad or stupid, is way better than censoring them, because once they say their idea, and if it's stupid, boom, they'll learn that it's stupid. They'll hear enough critiques and they'll be like, oh yeah, that is stupid. But I just wanted to ask your opinion on, like, well, do you think Musk is kind of leading the frontier? Or I bet he is, but like, do you think other social media platforms will follow Musk's method of allowing free speech, or do you think Twitter might be the only one at the moment?
That's a great question. That's actually a really, really good question, because for a while, conservatives, I would say, didn't find a place where they could openly discuss their ideas and feel safe. Majority of times that they were censored or anything like this, it was always on big social media platforms. And I really do like what Elon Musk is doing. I'm a huge fan of Musk because he's another one of these people that is not just, I am Republican or I'm Democrat. The left will call him a crazy right-wing extremist. And then, you know, the crazy right-wing extremists who see him appoint the World Economic Forum individual to run Twitter now is going to call him a left-wing extremist, right? So it's like perfect, right? That means that you're dead center in the middle. You're saying things that the right doesn't like, and you're saying things that the left doesn't like. But he's doing something that should be a liberal value that is shared by all Americans, and that is freedom of speech. Nothing is worse than having hate speech laws, because that is just that's literally pre-context to fascism. I mean, being able to just have vague hate speech laws like they have in United Kingdom, for example, allow you to position yourself to describe everything that you don't like under the context of hate speech. So at some point, you start to realize that everything is being censored because it's hate speech, but that is just fascism. And I always find it funny because they constantly want to tell me that fascism, and it has been historically a right-wing characteristic, but when you look at it, authoritarianism is a left-wing like trait or characteristic. So how are you going to have authoritarianism without fascism? So it's always funny to me. Like the main thing for the left is to censor speech that they don't like under the context of hate speech, and that is fascist. And they don't like it when we call them fascists, or they call us fascists. That's the funny thing about that. So I think a lot of companies are being forced to come up to Twitter standard now, because I look on YouTube. They now allow you to post things that, challenge the 2020 election. You weren't able to do that before. You would automatically get demonetized. They wouldn't even let you upload that thing.
True.
And so I think Twitter is kind of forcing a lot of companies to kind of rethink what they were doing when it comes down to speech, when it's protected by the First Amendment. Because he should, any company any individual that has the will and the desire, they can come in, take over the company, and expose everything that the company has done, like he did through the Twitter files. I mean, imagine YouTube files, imagine Facebook files, imagine Google ad files, or just Google files, right? I mean, they know the dirty work is there. So maybe that's a little conspiracy, but I don't see another reason why these companies are suddenly shifting to accept conservative viewpoints, or allow these controversial topics to be on their platforms when they weren't allowing this before Twitter kind of switched their policies and whatnot. So
yeah, that kind of adds. Yeah, that adds to the optimism side.
Oh yeah, we got optimism. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as there's free speech, there's optimism. So.
Yeah, and this is kind of funny. Like, I don't know what your opinion is of Andrew Tate. I actually didn't have much of an opinion on him until maybe the past 2 weeks, and I've started to do some looking just because out of curiosity. Because I actually, let's say about 4 weeks ago, I posted an episode that said why you should listen to Jordan Peterson, and wow, that was the most hate I ever got by far in regards to episodes I'd ever posted. Facebook comments going crazy. I throw it on this university Snapchat little story thing, and holy cow, now I'm known as a horrible racist, whatever. But either way,
all that is
people, people started comparing me to Andrew Tate, and I was and I just had heard the name, and I was Andrew Tate, let's take a look. And I actually, I started to see what he had to say, and I was okay, what's this guy saying that's so controversial? And I tried to dig, and I was okay, what's the horrible thing that he's been saying? And he's it seems like he's telling men to kind of be hard, hit the gym hard, conquer your depression by, going the opposite direction, or I don't know. It's be protective towards women, be a source of stability, all these different things. And I was just kind of he actually doesn't seem that controversial to me. I wonder why they're trying to censor him. And I'm just going to keep telling the story a little more, because there's some context of, I have this account that I don't really tell that many people about, so I guess I'm saying it now. It's called Life-Changing Clips. It's on YouTube, Instagram, whatever, and it has way more followers than my page. But I just post clips of Peterson, of Goggins, of whatever, and I just it's kind of automated, and it's on the side, and I have ideas for it and whatnot. But either way, I told my editor guy, yo, get a few Andrew Tate clips up in here. I want to see what's going on. And so then I posted one, and it was so interesting because all of the platforms allowed it except TikTok. TikTok said, this post has been taken down due to community guidelines. And I was how interesting. Now, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, those three are allowing it, but TikTok's not. And I was just kind of like, interesting. But the community guidelines strike was so vague. And I was like, man, this is so frustrating, because all he's saying is, I don't think men should prioritize happiness. I think they should wake up, whether they're happy or sad, and still do the same things, which are go to work and perform well at work, go to the gym and perform well at the gym, take care of their woman, whether they're happy or not. And I was just kind of like, boom, how controversial. But I just find it kind of unfortunate that we live in a culture now where if a person doesn't sell his soul to the mainstream media or bow down and say, yes, I agree with you, big government, or says things that gets him in trouble, but then stands his ground. It's like, I find it unfortunate that we still live in a culture where people are trying to cancel people. And I'm like, I'm curious what your thoughts on Tate or any of that, or if you've looked into it much at all, or just curious.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a big topic, honestly, because we discussed on my podcast toxic masculinity, and that's obviously what they're trying to frame it as, is that this is all toxic masculinity, caring about yourself and making sure you're the best version of yourself is toxic masculinity. And then you say, well, what about a woman who wants to be the best version of herself? And then they say, oh no, that's the right thing. And then you say, okay, good, all right. At least we don't have to fight for them yet, right? The war's gonna come for them soon.
Probably.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's gonna happen. Everything is gonna come to erode what it means to be an individual, because at the end of the day, they just want you to be a subject, just another person, or not a person, just a subject. But so it's taking care of a woman and protecting her, toxic masculinity, right? That's what they want to do. So Andrew Tate is somebody that I remain objective on, because it's not a person I really want to cover, because I always find myself not knowing too much about the situation. Because here's what I'm going to first say, is that there's nothing wrong with 99.9% of the things that he said. There's maybe literally 0.1% of things that you can find out there that he may have phrased it in a certain way that may not really align with, I'll straight up say Judeo-Christian values. He does believe in Islam. So some of the things that come down to women being as property, it's not something that I would agree with in terms of my faith and how I would see a woman. However, I understand what he's trying to say, that woman, if you're in a marriage, and that is she is somebody that you have to take care of. You have to provide for her, right? And these things they're trying to say that are terrible, because, essentially they do want women to go out there and be in the workforce, because dad ends up leaving the kid behind. So the mom isn't teaching the kid, the dad isn't teaching the kid anymore. It's now the government teaching the kid. So I don't, there's nothing wrong with telling guys to be more masculine, or to be more manly, or to be more responsible, or any of this stuff. We're actually living in a time where all these guys are not being held accountable to their things. I mean, a lot of single parent households are outcomes of just men not being accountable anymore, or not really having a sense of responsibility. So there's nothing wrong with that. I saw a campaign launched against him. I saw that from the beginning. Then you saw him end up in jail in Romania. He was a lot of people don't realize this, but because he's an American citizen and he was held in a foreign jail without having any charges brought up against him, is actually a violation of international law. All these people always constantly want to talk about protecting your human rights. Just a quick little sorry for most people. Healthcare is not a human right, like all they want to scream. But you sitting in a jail and rotting with no charges being presented to you, with no free trial or anything like that, is a violation of your human rights, your pursuit to happiness. So always people like to say, oh, healthcare is a human right. It's not. The pursuit of happiness is your human right. Not being a slave is your human right, right? So and all of these things are not right. And you can obviously say he became a big victim of this huge cancel culture, right? I mean, when I look at cancel culture and I look victims of it, Andrew Tate is at the top of it. And that brings me to TikTok, because I also posted something about Andrew Tate when he did the BBC interview. It was fine on it was fine on Instagram. It was not allowed for monetization on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it says that ads don't really want to monetize this, okay? And then TikTok, at least it's allowed out there, though. And TikTok outright bans it. And like you said,
Yeah.
it breaks community guidelines. And I actually looked deeper into them, and it said hateful ideology. So now we go back to what we were just talking about, that they want to pass so many different hate speech laws just to rule everything that they disagree with under hate speech laws. And that's a very, very dangerous precedent that they're setting, because, again, they like doing it to you, but they hate when you do it back to them. And I've watched this happen for 2-3 years now, where Democrats, and I'll go ahead and group them into this, where Democrats will do something very unprecedented, which will make them set a precedent. And I always refer to them opening up a Pandora box like that. And then they hate it when that comes back and bites them in the butt or shoots them in the foot or something like that. They cheered on when the Supreme Court passed the right that the federal government is allowed to, tell agencies to say, hey, you have to take the vaccine. But they didn't realize that 6 months later that set up the precedent for Roe v. Wade being overturned, because now you're saying that the federal government is allowed to have a, say over your body and whatnot. So it happens all the time. They launch an attack on Trump, and now, they're realizing that Biden, because he's very, very criminally involved in a bunch of things, that they're going to use the same precedent that they used against Trump against Biden. So it's crazy. And yeah, I know that took us a little off hate speech, but they don't want to do this because they know eventually this is going to happen to them, yet they're doing it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I actually, just today, I don't know if you've heard of Patrick Bet David.
Oh, yeah.
He actually just released a 5-hour episode with Tate. I don't know if you saw that.
I started to see a little bit of it because, like you said, it's 5 hours. I think I'm like at the 30-minute mark of it.
Yeah,
I'm like, I've been waiting for this interview.
Yeah,
Patrick Bet David's like up and coming podcaster for me. He's not an up and coming podcaster, but for me, I'm like, wow, this guy. I really enjoy listening to him all of a sudden, and I get to see him go and do this interview now. It's like, wow, I'm so excited to check it out.
Now that I think about it, you were the guy who was like, I'm gonna start doing more looking into Patrick Bet David, and I followed him, and then I saw that he did it with Tate, and so it was like this beautiful like butterfly effect thanks to you. But either way,
at how that works.
Yeah, man. Like, I guess real quick, maybe to poke a hole in what you're saying, on this 5-hour ep, Tate was talking about how he's converted to a Christian, and which was kind of an interesting little part of that episode. And yeah, it was.
Oh, nice. Okay, well, I'm excited
kind of
to
interesting.
see that. Yeah. Oh,
but
yeah.
Either way, I just thought I'd say that just because.
Yeah, because I mean, see, majority of the time that people will make the comments that Andrew Tate will make is because they're referring to their religion. And again, I have no problem with you believing in that. Even though I have my problems with that religion, it's your right to believe in that. But these are going to be the symptoms of that religion. So. It just, when I heard Andrew Tate say that, I wasn't surprised. I knew that he was already, I guess he converted now, but before he converted, that's what he kind of like, it just made sense essentially. So
yeah, exactly. That's
good to know. Excited to see if that has any influence on anything. Then if it doesn't have influence on anything, then I'm completely wrong. And then it has to do with something else. But yeah, it's, we shouldn't judge people because of one thing that they said or two things that they said. And who knows if they actually meant to say it exactly like that or phrase it up like that when they're on a podcast. It's totally live. It's who knows, right? So
exactly.
Yeah. Shouldn't judge them just on that,
Yeah. A lesson that I kind of got from watching, I've only maybe an hour in that episode, but a lesson that I kind of am getting from this whole thing is like, like for maybe us both, anyone who's kind of promoting content or talking on a mic and putting it out on the internet, it's like, there might be a time in which you say something and you get flack for it. And it's like, okay, I'm going to look back. I'm putting myself in the shoes, and it's like, okay, I said something and I really got to be honest with myself. Like, okay, is what I'm saying a bad thing, or is that something that aligns with me? And if it does and people are still mad, I can't bend. Like I'm signing a deal with myself. Like no matter how much hate or how many people hate you or think you're horrible, stand with your conscience. Like don't bend over and say, "You're right, I'm sorry." Like that's like a deal I've signed with myself. I knew that starting a pod might have those consequences later, but it's like no matter how many people quote unquote hate what I said, I'm going to stand with what my gut and heart and soul are saying, and I'm not going to allow the mob to bend me over. But that's just kind of a little lesson that I've been thinking about today, and maybe you might have a similar thing later in life where, oh, David said this, blah, blah, blah. But whatever.
Oh, yeah. I think about it all the time.
Yeah.
Now that it might, all these clips are out of me and everything like that. It's like I'm always like wondering if like what I'm going to say, will it be taken out of context? Is it ever going to be used against me? But then I just, like you just said, I go back to just making sure that what I said lines up with my values. And if I phrase it in a way that I shouldn't have, or I just didn't come out the right way because it's live on a podcast, then I'm able to, a lot of people will say, it roads you as a man, but owning up to your mistake, I think is not the most, but it is a masculine trait. Being able to say, look, I didn't mean to phrase it like that. This is what I meant. I'm still, standing strong by my values and what I said. Even if you still think it's, crazy misogynist, whatever it is, I don't care. This is what I believe in, and these are my values. I'm open to different types of things for you to tell me why it's different and whatnot, but unless you change my mind, I'm not going to back down from this.
That's great.
Don't bow down to the cancel culture or the mob.
No. Yeah, like it kind of reminds me of a Christian phrase of like, there's a reason that it's called the narrow path, or like sometimes it takes courage and balls and like it takes character to kind of walk down the narrow path that's hard, that you're going to be critiqued for, the path that other people are going to hate you for. It's like, this is the path that Jesus walked. This is the path that Socrates walked. I'm not trying to compare myself, but I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes and be like, walk the path that's narrow. No matter how much flack you get for it, try your best to be the best version of yourself and saying what's true, saying what your conscience is telling you to say. And that's kind of just, that's something that like I said, I've signed a deal with myself to do. And it may be narrow, but it leads to a greater place than where this wide path that most people go down is leading towards.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love that. I'm actually steal that from you. So I hope you don't mind I borrow that from you from now on.
I stole it from someone else. It's just part of human life.
I like that. No, that's fantastic. I think you nailed it with that. That's I'm kind of speechless with that.
Good. No, that's good. I guess I actually have to get off in the next few minutes, but I was curious, like, do you have any closing thoughts, any final words you want to say, maybe advice to anyone?
Yeah, no. Well, first, I really appreciate you, putting me on the podcast and everything like that. I enjoyed it. It was fantastic. And for anybody that's listening that may not be following you, I highly recommend for you to follow Harley, because I get such awesome perspective of various different types of topics on your channel that I absolutely love it. And I might have to go follow your other channel. You said it's on Instagram and on YouTube. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely have to follow those things. And the only thing I'll leave with people on is that if you're not into politics or anything like that, I've heard that so many times the last 2-3 years from my friends. You don't have to be diehard into politics or anything like that. But the main thing is that don't be ignorant of politics, because politics impact you on a daily basis. Policy that gets voted on in Washington, D.C. has an impact on who you are. So if it means just knowing who your representative is, that's great. If it's staying updated with policy that is being introduced in the federal legislation or in your state legislation, that's fantastic. Politics doesn't have to be the messy, gross thing and that people see in polarizing. you can just be well aware of what is being introduced and passed that literally impacts your life, your community, and your loved ones. So if you're not into politics, I hope that convinces you to just be a little bit more into just paying attention and whatnot. And I really appreciate getting on here, Harley. I had a fantastic conversation with you.
Yeah, man. That was a great final thing right there. Great clippable moment, honestly. Like, kind of speechless, like, I'm going to do that now. No, that's a great point.
There you go.
It does impact you more than you realize. Staying completely ignorant to it isn't always the best route. So, yeah.
Exactly. Don't be all in it, but don't just be on the outside saying politics doesn't affect me, because it does.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, awesome, David. Really appreciate you coming on. It was a true pleasure.
Thank you so much, Harley. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to some more of these.
Yeah, bro.